If you're talking about a standalone modern adaptation of Snow White, then yeah, you know, it's passable.
Maybe.
Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. I'm Reina Creole, of course, always bringing you that spice when it comes to sci-fi and pop culture analysis. And in this video, going to be reviewing the Snow White 2024 film. And honestly, I did not feel that I could review this movie alone. So I have brought in one of my wing women, Erica of Hanging with Erica and Rob. How you doing, my dear?
Oh, doing good. It was a interesting date night. I dragged Raph with me.
Oh my gosh, poor guy. I, oh man, yeah, we literally just got done within a couple of hours of each other watching Snow White. Officially, it releases tomorrow, but there are preview viewings, and I like to go to the preview viewing so you get an idea and have enough information before you decide whether or not to see this film. So we got a couple things to talk about with regards to the film. Um, we're really not worried about spoilers because, frankly, you already pretty much know the source material if you've ever seen Snow White. However, there's some little nuances and changes, and frankly, uh, yeah, we're gonna spoil the heck out of this because we just need to. Uh, we'll do that. Do a couple of discussion points about the film, and then we will give you our review uh, out of 10 on a scale of 1 to 10, and let you know if we think that you should spend your hard earned or hard swindled money to go and see this film. So here we go. All right. So starting off at the top, uh, what are your initial reactions to the film, or say what were your initial reactions to the film? Did it meet, exceed, or fall below your expectations?
I would say we were pretty spot on um, with what to expect. My expectations, I think, were realistic. So on that note, yeah. Now there were a few things that did kind of take me by surprise, and not in a and not in a good way. um, yeah. I think I have more negatives than positives. Unfortunately, I was trying to look for positives. I think the only positive I have would be some of the songs. I think were good, just if you can separate the songs from the story, and everything else are catchy, they're good tunes. I
Mm-hmm.
just think they were mismatched, misplaced
Mm,
for a Snow White movie. I think the songs would have been better served if, let's say, they created a brand new original princess with a totally different storyline where those songs could have, instead of putting it with Snow White. That was kind of my takeaway. But overall, I think some of the songs I thought they were good, as much as I didn't want to think they were good. They had catchy tunes.
mm-hmm.
Um, That and the costuming as well, Gal Gadot, that her costume, the witch's costume was and her makeup was wow. Um, I kept looking at her eyes because I couldn't help it. Your eyes are just drawn to her eyes. So whoever did her makeup artist, and her lips in one scene was like a glittery uh,
Yes.
lipstick, and it was just beautiful on her. Um, yeah.
Yeah, whoever her makeup artist, they need a darn bonus because how they had her makeup look. I mean, she was between her makeup and between her acting. Gal Gadot was my favorite thing about uh about this movie. Let me get into that a little bit more in a little bit. But as for my initial impressions, well, I expected for it to be a complete dumpster fire. I did not like the trailer. As you know, that trailer's been downvoted like what, 1.7, I think,
Mhm.
million
Yeah,
downvotes. At least the one from 3 months was, yes, 1.7 million downvotes to 59K upvotes, which is not a good thing. But I will say the movie wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, but it kind of depends on how you look at it. If you're talking about, like, say, a flesh and blood adaptation of not only the Disney film, but the Brothers Grimm stories, okay, you will be extremely disappointed. And it's no, they didn't do that. And if you're talking about dead on, the Grimm's fairy tales, and also with Disney Snow White from 1937, mm-mm, they completely missed the mark with that. If you're talking about a standalone modern adaptation of Snow White, then yeah, you know, it's it's passable.
maybe.
It's passable. It's like squeaking, just squeaking under, into a C grade territory. And for me, it was like that with so many things. One, the costuming. Aside from the evil queen, the costuming was lousy. And this stuff is
Yeah.
important because most of us have a
Mhm.
visual memory of the Snow White animated film.
Mhm.
Snow White's dress looked horrible. The bottom of it looked like Party City. It did not look right. And I don't know why, who thought to make the bottom of her gown in tulle like that with a garish yellow color instead of, like, say, something like taffeta or satin, or even, or
Yeah.
even another kind of a brocade. But that took me out of it. Every time I saw that dress, I was just like, that's not the dress. You need to get the dress right. With the Cinderella live action that they did, they nailed that darn dress.
Nailed it. I want that
Come
dress. It's like when you want the dress and you want to twirl in it as a girl, that's when you know they've nailed it. I
Mhm.
did not feel that either with Snow White. The dress didn't even go all the way to the bottom. It went to, like, her ankles. There
Mhm.
were scenes where I was like, "Ooh, the dress just looks short on her." Like, it didn't fit.
Yeah, it just did not look right, and that's one of the things that took me out. Now, Gal Gadot as the evil queen, they nailed that, and I think that's where most of the special effects and and makeup budget went, because every time you saw her, literally, it was like seeing the original, animated film, like seeing the picture books and everything, just with how she looked with her makeup and her outfits. And in the one number that she did, they went back to like the classic
Mm.
look of what she looked like. I mean, with like everything, and oh my god, the like cape was insanely long, and I loved that. But yeah, they fell short that way. And also what you were saying about this feels like they were better off making a whole new, like, original princess story.
Yeah. Mhm.
I thought the same thing when they did the song called Princess Problems. I said, if they would have made a movie called Princess Problems and in a way kind of made it like a comedy, so to speak, I'm like,
Yeah.
that would work.
Mhm.
I
Or
said
even
that
just a sweet they could they don't always need to pull from an old legendary fairy tale like Grimm's, like, your
Mhm.
Disney. You can create from scratch, you don't have to go down what's already been done, even from a book. I mean, just create, and I thought so too. I thought the songs, I'm like, but yeah, you're right, that would have been a cute title for an independent, princess movie of princess problems. I mean, yeah, that actually would have worked perfect.
It's just what I was thinking with like all the, with her quote unquote naivete and, and all that stuff was going. I said that would have been much funnier and I would have paid more attention to that. With like Princess saying, this isn't fair. This is not how it's supposed to go. Uh, but yeah, it's just as for Snow White, no, I did not see that. Um, so sticking with visuals again. Um, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Let's talk about that nightmare fuel known as the CGI Seven Dwarfs.
There that and there were, like, a lot of the scene, the scenery, the backdrop, you could tell was, I guess, CGI'd in or animated in. It wasn't like it didn't feel like a set, it didn't feel like it was on location. It felt very digitally artificial in some of the scenes to me, and that really kinda took me out of the story. And I guess that's where you could tell they were trying to where they
Hmm.
ripped stitches out and then tried to re-sew with the reshoots, and they were trying to, like, I guess, correct what all the pushback they were getting. You kinda tell where they were kind of stitching,
Hmm.
and it, and a lot of another part that kind of annoyed me were the jewels. They looked really fake, they looked plastic. They didn't really look, like glass. At the very
Hmm.
least, make it look like glass 'cause, it would look shiny and more like a dime, but this a lot of those props that you were seeing, even my only critique of Gal Gadot's, costume would be her crown. That's the only thing I would have
Mm,
changed. Her crown to me seemed, it looked plastic, honestly. I wish they had stuck with a gold,
I agree.
um, and I think that would have fit better, but that's in terms of visuals, that's what I picked up on, and it really kinda it took me out of the story. It didn't draw me in.
Hmm. Yeah, the seven dwarfs. I did not like how they looked, but let me go back to the mind because you hit on something. Another thing that took me out of that film from the animated film from 1937 and all the picture books because Snow White was one of my favorite stories.
Mhm.
I thought we were going to see like an actual mine where they've got their pickaxes and they are actually digging. They're not
Dang.
using
Yeah.
some kind of magic or whatever to create veins of light and just scoop jewels out and dump them in the no 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 they had pickaxes. They were working to get those gems out. And like you were saying, the gems in a mine were a billion diamond shine. That's what I
Mhm.
thought we were going to get. And then you see the screen pan out and it looks like something from a science fiction film. So I'm just
Yeah,
like, I don't get
they
it. And then
had
when they
I
were,
didn't like the magic powers. I guess that's where
no,
when they were first scripting it, they were I think wasn't that they were gonna title it Snow White and the 7 Magical
magical
Creatures
creatures. Yeah.
originally.
Hmm.
You could tell that wasn't original. They didn't take or tweak that out. That's what I picked up on. So, I guess I decided to leave that alone, but it takes away from the fact that They were little men. They were dwarves. They weren't creatures or some kind of mystical, magical. I didn't like that take on the dwarves. In my opinion, I don't understand how little people wouldn't find that offensive. I guess in the name of trying not to be offensive, they managed to be offensive.
Yeah.
It's like, what's wrong with even if you're doing CGI dwarves, why can't you just have them as dwarves? People have dwarfism. It is what it is, you know? And I don't think it's anything to be ashamed of or anything to be shamed. And it's I didn't like that element, and then had them having little magic powers where they could just know
Yeah.
what no, in the original, they were literally looking to see what diamonds were real and which ones were the full
Mhm.
diamonds that were fake, and they were actually working, and actually digging out diamonds from the mine,
Mhm.
like how a human would mine in a mine, and it took away from that. I didn't like that either, and they didn't whistle. I was waiting for the whistling when they were singing the song. I was waiting for it and waiting for it, and then the way they did the whistling, I did not like that either. I didn't like how I don't know, I found that to be, and don't get me started on how they treated Dopey.
Oh my
That was
gosh.
another thing that my first initial thought was, Walt, no. No. Like, no. Why? That
I
part really pissed me off.
it did to me too, because it's like, okay, you're trying to make Dopey into simple Jack. Okay. No. I didn't like that. And they made like the other dwarves seem like complete jackasses towards Dopey. And it's like we didn't we didn't see that,
Yeah.
in the animated film. And to get back to what you were saying about the CGI, when I was watching that, watching the film, there was another actor in that film who did have dwarfism. I think the only one that they showed on
The only
camera.
one.
They used one guy
Mhm.
with dwarfism to voice, I think the voice Grumpy. But the more I saw this
Yeah.
guy in the movie, the more I said they totally missed out on organic acting and interaction. And I think that scene would have gone much better if you had real
Mhm.
actors with real dwarfism bringing realism to that particular scene, because kids aren't stupid. And I was like, look at these, CGI dwarves, they look horrible or whatever. But that would have been such a great way to relate to them. I mean, if Disney, you think, hiring little people is offensive, okay, well, Universal said, you know what? For Wicked, they had plenty of them.
Yep.
And it worked because it was realistic to look at. So I didn't like how that scene was written. And I also caught in the mine scene, I think that was a straight up advertisement for the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. And the reason why, if you've ever
100%.
gone on the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train and they've got the
Yep.
carts with the
Mhm.
plastic things in it, I said that is almost shot for shot what that
Yep.
what that is. And
I
I'm just
didn't
like, that's so
mhm.
lazy.
I
So
didn't like how I didn't like the way she came off teaching them, like, how to whistle and
mhm.
clean. Like, what we had predicted that definitely honestly was worse than what when I saw it, the real thing, I was like, "Wow, this is actually worse than than what we were already seeing in the trailers."
Yeah.
I didn't like it before, and I really didn't like it, on the big screen. Her attitude, um, I don't know, there's this weird shift with the character Snow White. She goes from this, they're trying for her to be this sweet, innocent, kind person, but then she kind of flips, and you can kinda tell she's teaching the men, the dwarves, to clean their own mess. And then you got the prince in that one song that was calling her out
Oh
on
my god.
basically and I thought that was kind of
Princess
actually, I
problems.
was like, the I was kinda laughing at that. I was like, I don't really like the song. I'm not a big fan of that particular song, but the lyrics, I was like, it's oddly fitting for Rachel Zegler." You know?
Yeah.
Um, but there's that flip there,
Mhm.
I kinda noticed a little bit of a flip where, the sweetness and her gracefulness that the cartoon had was
Mhm.
not there, and it didn't even when the prince or not it wasn't even a prince, wasn't a prince. There's no prince, people. No,
No prince.
he was a
Just
peasant. She
just
met a
Jonathan.
peasant.
Yes.
He's a bandit. There was no prince.
Mm-mm.
That was her love interest,
Yeah.
and the thing
Jonathan the
is that the
perp by
guy
Cody.
yeah, he looked like Flynn from Rapunzel, and he
Yes.
acted like him, and he was a
Yes.
bandit just like him. It's like, "Girlfriend, you done stole one of your own girl's boyfriends."
I'm sorry. I just pictured Rapunzel coming after her with the cast iron skillet.
So funny because I had that thought in the theater like, "Oh, man, this is this is really bad."
So
Sorry, I know
bad.
I'm derailing a little bit here, going on a little bit of a tangent. But my point is that there seemed to be a shift in Snow White herself, where sweet and innocent to kind of spoiled brat, condescending. I don't know. There wasn't cohesiveness there from her acting to the way they kind of wrote her too.
Mhm.
That was kind of off putting for me.
Yeah, I mean, same thing because I'm remembering from the animated film that, when the animals leap, which I thought the CGI animals were, I thought they were cute, especially the chipmunk stuffing his face.
Oh, they
Uh,
were adorable, and that
they
CGI
were,
was perfect.
yes, I
They looked
love
like
the
furry little
animals.
animals. That was the best
Hmm.
part. One of the best.
I know that, and I think it was a little, I don't know, with the possum or whatever the heck it is. He kind of like curled up in a ball, and
Oh, the hedgehog.
the hedgehog, yeah, that was cute. I did they knocked it out of the park with the CGI animals. They actually did really good job with that. But in the animated film, when the animals lead Snow White to the Sweppendorf's cottage, when she walks in and she's noticing, oh, there are these little socks and little outfits, and poor things didn't have
Mhm.
chance to do the dishes or anything like that, and then she gets the animals to help her do that, and she's so exhausted, that's why she falls asleep, you know,
Yeah,
not because, she was running through the woods and fell through a hole and then into
ended up
some
in some
kind of
river,
ravine, ended up
which
in a
was
river.
random.
Yeah, I'm like, what did you had me with running through the woods because that's something I remember from Snow White's Scary Adventures, which was
Then
really
they
good.
had to go down Alice in Wonderland and
Yes,
have her go through
I'm just like, okay, all right. So she just goes there and falls asleep in the bed. And with not showing, telling them, you get the sponge, you get the mop, you get the broom, and I'm going to tell you how to clean the house. I'm like,
and even
what?
her facial expression, because in the trailer, it was there, but for whatever reason on the big screen, it's
It
really
looked
there.
worse.
The
Yeah.
look on her face was very much snarky and very
Hmm.
condescending. Um, and I'm like, "Ooh, like, that's not sweet, graceful Snow White that I have built up in my head,"
Hmm.
you know? Um, so yeah, they definitely wrote her to be this very a feminist, plain and simple. They,
Yes. Feminist girl box. That's
yeah,
exact. Well,
that's how
yeah.
they or warrior princess is how I like to describe her in a way.
Yeah. I didn't like that because she looked so snarky and like she was looking down. Um, on the dwarves. And the other thing that really irritated me is Rachel Zegler. I'm pretty sure she's a wonderful singer, but her singing voice was
Mhm.
so annoying and agitating. It reminds me of Sarah Brightman's voice. I mean, Sarah Brightman's done better recently, but her voice, like, she was the worst part of Phantom of the Opera for me. The recorded version from the Broadway show, I couldn't stand her voice. It didn't fit. It wasn't soft and soothing and very highborn princess like it. That
Yeah.
just didn't that didn't work. And speaking about Jonathan the Perp, actually, because this brings me to another point that I saw. The fact that they try to make him and Snow White a love interest, I'm like, I didn't see that. So
It was
it
forced. It felt kind of
wasn't it.
forced, like uh, it just didn't feel organic. It didn't feel natural.
That's the word. That's the
That's what it
word.
was. And, I don't know if they were just shooting so many shots that they were just that was the best they could put out. Maybe they were tired. It was I could imagine if you're having to do things over and over and over again, you just kinda get, like, tired, and then maybe they just go with the best they can pull from however many shots they did. That's kinda what
Hmm.
it seemed like. But yeah, that one scene where they were singing, I kinda got lost in the story because there again, I thought I was watching Rapunzel. They had lanterns in the background, they had the lightning bugs going, and, uh, I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, we switched modes here from Snow White to Rapunzel." And then that's when it hit me, "That's who he looks like now. It's Flynn, that's"
The
and then this whole,
same.
like, Rapunzel. And it just kept like, "Are you serious? You pulled from another Disney movie
Hmm.
because you couldn't come up with something I mean, you didn't even have to get all that creative. Guess what? It was already done for you in 1937. You couldn't have just stuck to that. You
No.
didn't have to look very far."
Mm.
No, but
It's
I
like I.
caught like, they were pulling from other stories and just kind of sewing it here and there. Um, and him being thrown in the dungeon was another one, but that one to me was more reminiscent of Sleeping Beauty. I was waiting for
Agreed.
fairies to just pop out of nowhere
Mhm. To
and
come
unchain
fly,
him from the
stealing
dungeon.
Jane,
Yeah,
and,
maybe
get
the,
him
little
kitted up
fireflies.
with this sword and with the shield and everything, and it's like, vaya con
Yeah,
Dios. That I was waiting for that to happen, and to go back
'cause
to, I guess, wannabe Flynn Rider, when they were
when
singing, I could have swore they were gonna start singing "At Last I See the Light." That's
me
how
too.
I'm like, can't I can't. Did they really freaking do this?
Yeah, I felt the same way, and I was just like, "Wow," and yeah, after she ate the apple and, passes or dies or whatever, my first initial thought was, "Well, he's locked up in this dungeon. How is he gonna get out?" And then that's when the Sleeping Beauty, like, where I was like, "Oh, no." I'm like,
Mhm.
"Please don't tell me. Please don't tell me they didn't." I mean, they didn't, but they did, The
Yeah.
fact that they wrote him, being locked in a dungeon like that, I was like, "Really?" I'm like, "There again, you pulled from another story and you just kind of sewed it in there." Like, you really think that your Disney fans who really know their Disney stories and their fairy tales aren't gonna notice these little details? They really underestimate the audience and what we know of their stories from yesteryears, how they were already written.
Mhm. I really think that, again, and we knew this from what Rachel Zegler had spoke about and what Disney has said, is that they were making this a feminist film,
Yeah.
a modern princess. And what they forget is that it's bad enough the princess franchise is down the toilet. This makes it worse.
Yeah.
And it's like I
Mhm.
said in a video I did, I think like last year. I said, without toxic males, the Disney princess franchise fails.
Yeah, it
Little
does.
girls want to see beautiful outfits. They want to see an interesting, love interest. Boys
Mhm.
want to be seen as the hero, not
Hero. Yep.
someone who's like, well, I didn't have enough courage and I couldn't do whatever. It's like, no, no, no. You want a dude who was just like, okay, where my girl at? I'm gonna go and get her. I got the horse. Well, Jonathan the perp did have the white. He got a white horse for some reason. He didn't
Yeah,
earn
that
that
came out
white
of
horse.
nowhere.
He did
It
not
just
earn
popped
that
out of
white horse.
nowhere. I didn't even
Yeah,
see a white horse at all in that movie until it just poof out of nowhere. I'm like, "Oh, there's the white horse." I'm like, "Now it comes out of frick."
yeah,
After every other horse you see in the movie is black or brown.
black. Hmm.
And I'm like, "Okay,
I'm
okay."
like,
I'm like,
you gotta be freaking kidding me. And then, when Snow White bites, Apple and she's dead, you would have thought that the dwarves would put her, remember the casket that she
"Yes, in the
had,
casket."
because
They put her on a
they because
rock
because they were so heartbroken. They couldn't like bury her. So they, had her in a glass coffin. Even in
in a
Shrek,
glass.
they
Yeah,
parodied that, with the
yeah.
glass coffin. They just put her on a rock.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I was waiting for a scene where maybe they were building her coffin or something, and just a flat rock. That's it.
Yeah.
Oh, and
With
the little arch with the little flower arches.
yeah.
I guess that was the replacement for a glass coffin. I'm like, "Hmm, okay."
It's just like, oh, Jonathan the perp did not ask for consent before he kissed her. I'm just
Oh,
saying.
no.
I'm
No, he
just
didn't. I hate to disappoint you, little,
mhm,
feminists out there who think don't even get me
mhm.
started because then you'll nope,
It, it,
not going there.
uh, yeah, just I just couldn't with that. I said this is just it's oh my gosh, it really
And
pissed
there
me off when I saw that.
and there was political messaging. It was there.
Very much so. Where did what where in the film did you start to see political messaging?
So for me, it was when Doc and I tried to keep they his line was spewed so fast, but basically what I got out of it was he was spewing how the witch no, not the witch, I mean, she kind of is a witch, um, uh, evil queen's policies and, uh, that they were, I guess, like, oppressive. I don't know, it really parroted what we're hearing today in modern day,
Mhm,
politics. And the second I heard that, I was like I literally said, "What the F?" in the theater. And that was the only time in the movie I really kind of got loud. What was even that? I was, like, under my breath. No one could hear me. Well, there
mhm,
was only 2 other families in the theater anyways,
mhm,
um, and they weren't sitting anywhere near us. But that was what really turned me off at that point was why did it even have to be in there at all? Everybody already knows standardly she's an evil queen. Nobody likes her. So why did any character have to go into detail as to at least on the political side? And I wish there was we could do like a clip of that actual scene. I don't know that's even if we could, you'd probably get hit by YouTube for it or something.
yeah, I
But
think
it was there, and I know you caught it, but you caught it earlier in the movie than I did.
yeah, you have the song in the beginning where the king and the queen, and you have, Snow White as a girl. That actress was really cute. Can I just say that she was just so sweet?
She was adorable. Yeah.
I just loved watching her because she was just amazing. So I was like, that is great. And they're talking about fairness, and I'm like, okay, is that like with the courts or making sure people are treated fairly in the society or
Mhm.
whatever? No, that whole song is about everyone sharing their communal resources,
Yeah.
fairness. You bring this, you bring that, so nobody wants for anything. And I said, what kind of Marxist propaganda is this? And I almost
Mhm.
let slip a WTF. I had to remember there were kids next to me. Well, about like 6 of them in the whole theater, honestly. And I saw that, and I'm like, that is the most. I couldn't believe it, but I could believe it at at the
Yeah, it's
same time.
socialistic propaganda, and it's coming from an
Exactly.
entertainment. Yeah, I didn't pick up on that until you mentioned it, and I was like, "Oh." It's funny because as the song was playing, I could feel something was off. I just, for whatever reason, couldn't connect the dots or articulate what sounded off, but you hit it on the nail right there, that it was basically them pushing sublimely, socialistic ideology. And then later in the
Mhm.
film, Doc just with this long
Mhm.
paragraph that was spewed in, like, I swear 10 seconds, really hard to
Mhm.
capture the actual words, but it was enough, at least for me, to realize, "Wait a second, like, you just injected politics into this." The one thing your fans consistently, movie after movie, TV show after TV show, keep
Mhm.
telling you to stop doing.
And it's just insidious. And then at the end of the movie, they're all in white. I'm like, oh, okay. I guess this is the one, the shining path. You know what I mean when I say that? The shining
Mm,
path that everyone stays on so no one gets lost. I said, you've got to be kidding me. Again, it's just like the imagery. If you're not paying attention to it, if you're not like plugged into what that kind of messaging is when you see it, you're not going to think about it. It's like, oh, they're all in white now. They're all together. It's like, no, not really, considering what they're talking about. And when Doc spewed off that line about the queen and her policies, first of all, Gal Gadot's acting had me scared to death. I when Snow White goes to talk to her, and she's just cracking crab legs. First of all, anytime I know when I eat crab legs, I do not really want to have a conversation with anybody because I just want to eat crab legs. And she's just snapping them while she's talking to her. I'm like, I'm freaking scared. I am absolutely scared
I have to
of
wonder if there
her.
was much acting behind that.
I would have to agree because the way she talked and all of that, I said, first of all, it's bad enough. The movie usually isn't going well when you're rooting for, the villain, completely. And it's like you can understand where she's coming from. That's why I'm saying they blew, I think, most of the special effects budget on the evil queen and
Yeah,
what
you're
she
not wrong,
looks
they did.
like, everything. And one of the things that they did right, one of the things they did do right, and I noticed this because this is linked to the evil queen. Whenever she would talk to the magic mirror, that looked like
Oh, they landed it.
exactly out of the film when she talked to the magic mirror when she started to age. That was actually done very well with CGI. When she makes the potion to make herself age into the old woman, and she dips the apple in
The
the
apple,
potion
yep,
and pulls it up, and it looks okay, and then all of a sudden it looks like a
like a skull,
skull,
yep.
and she just pushes on off to go find Snow White. And then when she does, the way that she entices Snow White out and convinces her to bite the apple, that whole scene, along with Rachel Zegler falling on the floor, and the apple, the apple
Mm,
bitten apple rolls out. I said, okay, they actually paid attention that way. I liked those scenes because they remind me of the animated film.
mm,
Reminds me of the Brothers Grimm. Reminds me of, again, Disney used to print these like little books of the princess stories and
mhm.
the fairy tales and Snow White. was among them. So I loved how that looked. But at the same time, it's just like I shouldn't be rooting for the villain. I shouldn't be yelling, Snow White, bite the
Right.
apple. Because when I saw the animated feature, I was like, don't bite the apple. Don't.
Well, and another thing, because you know how films are supposed to pull emotions out of you.
Right.
Did
Mhm.
you at all feel, like, sad or the need to cry when Snow White died when she bit into the apple? It did nothing for me, and I'm a sappy person, like, it doesn't take much for me to honestly get drawn into even really into a poorly written movie.
Mhm.
I can be that, uh, type of normie, and this did not do it. There was no emotion for me, honestly, throughout the entire film, other than
Mhm.
the evil queen. I actually felt that sense of, like, "Oh, she's really evil." That's the only time it drew an emotion out of me was when Gal Gadot was put on the screen, and other than that, the rest of the film just it didn't draw me in. I wasn't drawn into a romance, I wasn't drawn
Mhm.
into the adventure that they were trying to go for, this girl boss, "I'm gonna go on this adventure and reclaim what's mine." I nope, none of that. It just fell flat.
I know for me, the only emotion that I felt was basically when the when the evil queen at the end got pissed and broke the mirror. I'm like, oh no, I don't think you should have did
Oh,
that. And the way she went out, I actually felt sad for her being imprisoned in that mirror for the rest of her. I mean, just the special effects with what happened, it looked
yeah.
perfect. And I was just like, I'm gonna miss her. I don't I don't I don't like it. They have this, this, granted, okay, she could have did a much better job than she did and not like whack her dad. But it's just like this, now they have this princess who is all about that whole, socialist thing and everyone's together and no one goes hungry and I mean, I hated it. I really did hate it. And after the I am Spartacus moment where people are like, I remember how things used to be. I remember how things used to be. Man, she was about to take that crystal dagger and put it deep in her heart. I was like, how'd she miss? Yeah, I was annoyed by that too. But you're right. When Snow White died, I didn't feel anything.
Yeah, I didn't either. And we're not supposed to feel that way. Like, we're actually supposed to feel sad and even
Hmm.
cry when the dwarves cried. Nothing.
Mm-mm.
I just kept eating my kettle corn. That was the best part of the whole theater experience for me was they offered kettle corn at our theater, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll take that and a sweet corn." That was man, I annihilated that
Oh.
medium size. Oh, 5.
Mhm. Oh, that sounds so good. I was like, "Hurry up and die." I mean, literally, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, "Hurry up and die so this movie can be over."
Be
And
over with, and I can go home.
yes, and I can go home. And I can go home. And I know it wasn't just me because the kids that were in the theater, and this is what some people don't understand, and I don't think Disney understands this either. If kids are into a movie, they hardly say anything. They'll
Anything. Yep.
like remark about what they something that came up on the screen that they're excited to respond to you, or if it's like, Mom, I'm scared, or whatever, or I have to go to the bathroom. They've been holding it, for a while. But this movie, you had kids holding full on conversations. They were not paying attention to uh
Oh,
to this film.
I I got a story here. I could have sworn in the middle of the movie, I heard someone fart in the theater. That is no lie. I even asked Rap and got in the car, "Was it just me or did somebody fart in the theater in the middle of the movie?" And he's like, "I didn't hear anything." I'm like, "Well, I did." It
Yeah.
sounded like it came from the from the family that had like 4 kids.
Oh my god. Wow, you know it's an empty theater when you can hear that. Wow. I mean this darn oh my gosh, this darn movie. It's you could tell even with all the reshoots that they tried to do, the lighting, the palette,
Mhm.
again, aside from the Evil Queen, the
Oh,
color palette
we
was
did
boring.
we didn't even talk about the, what threw me off was I thought they had gotten rid of the bandits. They were still there.
Oh, get it. Yeah.
That's what surprised me, and I was like, "The weird hippies, they're here. I thought they took them out. Thought they were replaced with the dwarves." Nope, they were still there. They just added the dwarves to the, sorry, not 7 hippies. I think they dwindled it down to what, 5 hippies? I
Yeah,
counted 5.
it was about 5. Because if I remember correctly, I think there was an article, was it in the Sun or the Guardian? One of those UK rags, whatever, that had caught this picture and
Mhm.
it had Rachel Zegler and the bandits. And they tried to say, no, no, no. No, people are like, are they the doors? I'm like, no, they're not the doors. There's something, something else, bandits and all that. So it's like, okay, I guess, Snow White's going to be Robin Hood now. But yes, I was surprised that they were in there and they weren't needed really
Okay,
at
so
all.
I'm counting the ones 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm looking at the photo. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There is 7 in the photo. You could tell they took the one tall guy out way in the back, but they
Hmm.
kept and okay, so I see the 2 actors that they took out, but they kept uh the one black girl that had she had the blue
Hmm.
um they kept the redhead guy, he just had red hair, and they kept the tall, really white dude with the blonde curly hair, and they kept the, black dude that kinda had the afro, and the
Hmm.
dwarf, I forget his name. And then they added, well, the prince, but he wasn't a prince, he was just their bandit leader. He wasn't even there was no Prince what, Charming? Is that Snow White or Cinderella? Prince Charming, I kinda forget
I think
because they
I
didn't really
think
have any names.
I think with Snow White, did he hear the voice before? And then he's in the, he just happens to be coming by from what I remember and he
He's just
sees her.
passing through and he hears her voice, and
Hmm.
he's drawn to her gorgeous voice, and then he peers over the wall and sees a beautiful maiden, and, um, kinda similar to Sleeping Beauty. There were similarities between the
Yeah,
2
there
Disney
were.
movies,
Hmm.
um, but yeah, yeah, the bandits thing, they were there. They didn't get or the hippies, sorry, we kept
Yeah,
calling
the
them hippies
hippies
and bandits.
with the
Yeah,
really
and they were
bad.
dressed like hippies, by the way. They
Yes,
did
they
not
were.
change their costumes from that photo that was released that they kept denying was, "Oh, no, what" no, no, they're verbatim, same costumes.
And the costumes were horrible.
Mhm.
They were so
Yeah, no.
bad. I mean,
Even the villagers, their costumes
yeah.
weren't that great. I don't know if it was just the lighting didn't do them any justice.
Mm,
I was listening to Midnight's Edge, uh, earlier, was it this week or last week? And they were talking about how films nowadays, how back in the day you could see more shadows, and I guess there was more depth because I
mhm,
guess filming in film versus digital, there's this difference. And I kinda knew there was a difference I was seeing on the screen, I just didn't understand what was it that was making it different. Everything looks brighter and more sharper, like what you get on your television, like the 4K effect.
mhm,
I'm not in the industry, I'm not in the know, but they were kinda breaking down for the audience, well, because that's the difference between digital that we have today versus how things were filmed back in, let's say, the '90s, where you had more, I guess, depth, and you had more I guess, the way the cameras picked up on lighting and what you saw on screen was a bit darker, you had more shadows, and it
mhm.
created more depth, and found that conversation really fascinating because they were just pointing out what I couldn't articulate. Like, I could see there was a difference over the years. When I go to the movies now,
Mhm.
there is a difference. I couldn't quite connect what exactly is it that's different, and I'm thinking that is what made this movie visually kind of flop. I'm wondering if it's what Midnight's Edge was describing, with the whole digital and
Mhm.
how in yesteryears you had more, like, shadows and lighting and you had more depth. I would and I kind of expected that, honestly, going into but I don't go to the movies all the time. So, um, it didn't really have that. So it felt flat. There was a lot of it, like, the villagers and the costumes, even Snow White's like, Rachel's costume. I think
Mhm.
that's why it looks very flat and very, like,
Mm.
costumey, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can chalk it up to. I mean, that's that and there again, I'm pulling from what I heard on Midnight's Edge because I am not a, filmmaker at all by any means.
No, I mean it makes sense because most films in the 90s were not shot in digital. They were shot on, celluloid film for the most part.
Mm,
And the camera is much more sensitive to light
mhm.
and shadow. When you're doing digital, it's like how would I put it? It's almost like you have to put those shadows in from
Okay. Like
from what I
editing?
can see, and I guess it kind of depends on. I keep thinking with how much memory that you have for shooting with a digital camera, but yeah, you're right, and especially when it comes to CGI, because CGI doesn't instinctively do
That's true.
shading the
Right,
way that, like, say, you have an artist who's doing it and they understand,
right.
light and shadow and how that's used. So yeah, this film it was hard on the eyes in a lot of parts. And again, I don't know who picked the color palette, but certainly wasn't that great. But the last thing I want to show you before we get to our final scores and whether you should see this film, I want to show you what I mean about Snow White's outfit in the film and what I have seen cosplayers do. I mean, look at this.
That's beautiful.
This is what I
See
expected to
yep,
see.
that dark navy blue, that velvet blue, but the color on her dress, it was just too light of a blue. Um, yeah, this dress is better than what we got.
Mhm. Yeah, I tell you, it's like cosplayers can just absolutely they absolutely kill it. Like, even this one here, which is like a
Oh,
different
wow.
interpretation,
Ooh,
but this is like what I was expecting to see. If you're, like, updating it,
right.
okay, but it still looks like, it still looks
But
like
look
Snow
at the
White.
light, even in just photography, look at how the lighting is in that photo. You have a little bit of dark with light, and I don't know, you didn't the film did not capture what we're even seeing in this photograph.
It's just gorgeous. And it's like with all the money that Disney has, that they couldn't they couldn't come up with this. It's just so many things about this film that just did not hit on all thrusters for me. So speaking of that, ah on a scale of 1 to 10, Erica, what would you give this film?
Mm. I'm between a 2 and a 3.
Mm.
but that's how much of a Disney purist I am, and we're talking about Snow White. We're talking about Walt's Snow White. They're lucky I'm not giving it a 0.
I agree with you. I have my rating is of two minds when it comes to this. From the Disney purist standpoint, because Erica and I are like on one mind about this. It's like we know the 1937 film, Walt's legacy, how groundbreaking that film is, and it's still studied. You know, today, and even John Lasseter, I believe, views some of the same things. Like you have to actually go out in the ocean to figure out how to animate, how to animate the ocean, that kind of thing. But yeah, as a Disney purist, I would give it a 3. And the only reason that it's not a 2 is because of Gal Gadot's performance
Gadot,
as
yep,
the evil queen and her scenes.
yep.
That's the only thing that saved it. Now, if you are talking about a quote unquote reimagining of the film, I would give it probably
Okay.
about I'd probably give it about a 6. If it's on its own and we're not talking about, you know, pure Walt Disney, I'd give it a 6. And again, I'm being generous with like an extra point, again, because of Gal Gadot. The writing for this was disjointed. I didn't feel any sympathy for Snow White at all. I wasn't buying her quote unquote romance between her and Jonathan the Perp. I mean, I do not see why he would take a freaking arrow for her when he hadn't really known that chick this long. No, no, I didn't get that. And again, Disney cannot write relationships. Like there's something wrong with
They can, they choose not to because
ah,
they're trying to push an ideology and a message to
mhm,
girls, to little girls.
yeah. That
They can,
basically,
they just ignore it.
yeah, you don't need no man. Well, this is the reason why the Princess franchise is in the freaking toilet.
Mhm.
Okay? That's why it's in the toilet both for girls and for, boys. Because again, boys like heroes. And there used to be a time when you would go into the parks, whenever you'd see the princess, you would have, the prince right there along with her. And he wasn't a prince just because he was a prince. He was a prince because he was heroic and brave and actually did acts like that and cared about other people and protected other
Mhm.
people. I saw zero protection in this film except for the huntsman who put an apple in the box. I almost was hoping it was
Oh,
going to
that
be a
was
heart.
I know, me too. Stick to the original. And the whole Apple theme, like, I get it. I'm okay with it just because translating from cartoon to and you have to expect tweaks when
Yeah.
something's gonna be translated from cartoon to live. So that didn't bother me so much. Um, but everything else was so flat, that it didn't do anything. It didn't stir any emotion for me.
No, no. The only emotion that I felt was the evil queen because I was freaking scared of her.
Yeah, you definitely felt the evilness from her. You could feel a sense of, like, injustice and, "Oh, I really don't like her," like,
Hmm.
when they can pull that out of you, they're doing their job. But I wasn't feeling sorry for Snow White. There was no sense of sympathy or empathy because all I could see, and it came through on her acting, was a spoiled brat.
Hmm.
And then to write
Exactly.
a song about that,
You're a
I'm back to
spoiled
that.
brat.
That was kind of that was kind of funny.
They did it. It's like they didn't make her. I want to say like the movie Enchanted. I love that darn movie so much because she's like out of her element, and she's in New York and she meets Patrick Dempsey and she's like, "You're the only one who's been nice to me." And you kind of get that where she just does not understand really what's going on because she's just being in a fantasy world. But to get back to subject hand, the other reason why Um, I gave the reimagining a bit of a higher score is that they kept the villain unrepentantly evil.
Oh, yeah, they didn't do the whole
She,
"I'm misunderstood" storyline. I'll give give 'em that. Yeah,
yeah, that's what pissed me off about the Maleficent film. So
Maleficent.
the fact that
Yeah.
they kept her evil and she went out completely pissed off. I love that. I love that they didn't make any excuses for her. This chick was just evil. Like, yeah,
That's the only thing they did that stuck to canon in that whole movie
yes.
was the evil queen and the apple.
And I'm
That's
surprised they
it.
did that. I wonder if that was part of the reshoots that they're like, maybe we can
Maybe.
at least do, we can at least do that because that was executed pretty darn flawlessly. Because I thought in the end she was going to say, "Oh, Snow White, you're right. I'm so sorry. Let's return the land to the people." No, she grabbed that dagger and she was about to
Oh,
murk that kid.
I felt that too. I was like, "Oh gosh, they're gonna sit here and have negotiations and have, like, a conversion moment," you
Mm-hmm.
know? Um, so I was kinda surprised that they ended her the way that they did. That said, if I hope they don't do this, my only peeve about the way they ended the evil queen is that it can, if they wanted to, opens it up for a sequel.
Yes, I did notice. I
And
did think about that.
they're just that
Yeah,
stupid to do it.
absolutely. Absolutely. They are. Uh, well, last burning or the $10,000 was it $100,000 question? I don't know. For either way, the bonus money question: should people see this film? Is it something that's worth their hard earned or hard swindled? I like to say that money to go and see this.
No, I save your money, it's expensive. By the time you pay for your ticket and any goodies at the concessions, honestly, I've got more my heart set on Lilo and Stitch. That's looking promising. I would save your money and go see that one, but I would skip this one.
And I agree. Overall, it's Disney Plus worthy. I have to say that, considering the quality of the production. Is it worth for you to watch on Disney Plus? I would still say no. Just watch the original. Watch the 1937 original. There is
Yep,
nothing about this film that leaves you with that, wow, that was a great fairy tale, ending. No.
it did not do that for me at all.
Mm-mm. It didn't, and it's a shame because that's how Disney films used to make me feel, especially Disney
Yeah.
princess films used to uh used to make me feel like. So yeah, like Erica was saying, as much as it costs for tickets, especially for a family to go and see a movie,
Mhm.
no, 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 this is not worth it. Let me another thing, because I love it when kids in the theater, because they will telegraph what they're interested in. They paid more attention to two things: the preview for Minecraft, because these three little boys were about to pee their pants when they saw, they saw Minecraft, the Minecraft trailer. That one, and the Lilo and Stitch trailer. I, they were just like, oh my gosh. They're like pointing and they're laughing at Stitch doing stuff when he was dragging his butt across the floor like he had worms or something like that. Kids were just
Yeah,
cracking up. And I'm watching this and I'm just like, I cannot wait for this film to come, for this film to come out. That movie is going to make a whole lot of money, but not enough to make up for Snow White and Captain America: Brave New World. So I don't know, but this movie, ah, yet another misfire on the part of Disney. They have forgotten who their core audience is, and this is not it. Now, if you like the film, that's okay. You go ahead and you like it, and don't let anybody else tell you any differently. But On my channel, we like to give you all the information so you can make your decision whether or not this is a film that you want to see. But my recommendation, again, go watch the animated film, or even better, get yourself a copy of Grimm's Fairy Tales. Read that story.
Yeah.
Yeah, get the kids to read. Trust me, they'll love it. So, with that said, Erica, where can people find you, and what do you have going on, my dear?
Well, y'all can find us at Erica Dash Raft on YouTube. Right now, we don't have a whole lot going up on the channel, but you can usually find me when I'm invited to Lorena's Spice Lounge, her resort recon, and sometimes WW Pro. And follow the Bradley's Fun on occasion. He'll invite me on. So I just stream hopping on friends' streams, just commentary, opinion commentary on pop culture, movies, and eventually we'll figure something out for the channel and get some stuff up.
Oh, wow, that used to be me back in the day. I don't need an own channel. I'm always on everybody else's channel. I like doing that. I got peer pressure to start the channel. But folks, I have the link to Erica's channel in the description box. Please do go ahead and subscribe over to her channel. And as for your girl, of course, you can find me here on YouTube, various videos, live streams, all of that going on, just having fun, talking about pop culture, calling balls and strikes, and talking about theme parks. And speaking of theme parks, I heard that Disney shareholder call was a real nothing burger. Just
Yeah,
saying.
I heard that too.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Coco too. Really.
Ah,
Don't. Yeah, my
I
eyes rolled
think
when
it
I saw that. Just, you need Disney. You need to go back to your roots of what excellent storytelling
well,
is, because I really don't think you can afford another one like this film. But folks, you know what? You sound off in the comments. Let us know if you saw Snow White 2024 live action. What did you think about it? Was it worth your time? Did you think it was the best thing ever? Did you think it was a triumph like a lot of the entertainment media seems to think that it is? Let us know in the comments, because we would love to hear from you. And of course, definitely, if you got some value out of this video, please do hit that thumbs up button. Make sure that you are subscribed to Erica. Make sure you're subscribed to me. And we, of course, will see you all next time.
bye.
Bye.